part of the Earglue Media family of podcasts.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 288. It's time for another round of listener questions and feedback. Joining me tonight is the man with all the answers, including what he does to say so fit, Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thanks, man. I had to go get a new Magic 8-Ball for this episode, so we'll see how this turns out.
Yeah, we've got, this is always a fun one to do, and I know we've done a number of these now, but the guys and gals keep coming with some really great questions, and this one's no exception. So pretty excited about some of these questions, especially the very last one, which I've already spoiled. But before we do...
Great job.
yeah. Before we do, let's talk about news. I got a couple things in here. Star Wars Secrets of the Jedi is a book that I don't remember if that was released a few months ago when they kind of gave us this blitzkrieg of a bunch of stuff that they were going to be coming out with here in October. Or was this the first announcement of it?
I think so. I don't remember it either.
Okay, good. I thought maybe I was just having a senior moment of some sort, but
that's entirely possible.
That's not entirely out of the realm of possibility here. They did release this on StarWars.com, and they actually released some pictures of it. Like you can actually see the pictures, and it talks about like the force abilities, and talks about the Old Republic, talks about the New Republic, and it's all narrated, I guess, or written from the perspective of Luke Skywalker, which I thought was pretty interesting.
That is pretty interesting because there's some Last Jedi stuff in there.
Did you get a chance to read this?
I did. I read through some of the pages there, and first of all, I like the art style. Yeah, actually, I kind of like the concept of this book because, like you said, it's this perspective. So you get these. I don't know. It's really just a couple of paragraphs usually of a certain topic. So like a force push or something like that, and gives you a flavor for it. So it's a really nice book. Especially I think for younger readers or people just coming into Star Wars, this is a really cool book to get them acclimated or to learn more that aren't the hardcore fans, but want to learn more about what are all these things that go on and more focused conversation. Because I think they even touch on some of the Sith, like Darth Sidious and Palpatine, that type of thing as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's really kind of a nice introduction to a lot of these things. And it gives you a little flavor too of like maybe what Luke was thinking, just a touch, although it's a little, some of it's a bit of a stretch, right? I mean, it's still a kind of I don't know, not a fantasy book, but just kind of you have to suspend your belief if you're really into the canon aspect of the movies and what you've seen. You have to suspend that just a touch because, of course, Luke is not really able to write things down as far as we know at this point.
Right. I had a chance I read most of it. I don't think I read anything on the Jedi Masters and Knights, not because I didn't want to. I just didn't get around to it. But I read the stuff on The Last Jedi, and I read the stuff on light force abilities and the Old Republic. And I got to say, it was kind of safe. That was my only critique of this. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool that they did this. I like the artwork as well. It reminds me a lot of like if you go buy a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game, right? You open up the book. This looks exactly like it. The way the art kind of flows into the lettering, and there's certain sections that are separated, and you can do a little bit. They dive into a little bit more, that kind of thing. But right. It was all very safe. Like there was nothing in here. I probably stopped reading that when I did because I didn't find any like nuggets, or there was nothing spoilers, and I shouldn't have presumed that they would have done that, especially given this is coming out in I think October or so, and they're not going to ruin anything for the movie. But I thought, well, at least they'll give us some insight, something that we didn't know from all this other previous content, whether it be the Clone Wars or the Old Republic or force abilities, and it was all stuff that I already knew. So I don't know who this book is aimed towards or geared towards. I think it's necessary, right? I think there's probably a huge market for this in terms of people that just are now coming into Star Wars and don't have a lot of that background information or don't have a lot of these inside secrets as we've always thought they would be, when they're really not. I mean, it's just kind of common knowledge now these days.
Right.
But beyond that, the one interesting thing that I did find was in the actual article itself, like in the article on StarWars.com, there's a moment in there. Who is this that's talking here? Sumarak is the person that's talking. In the very last line, it says, the Jedi Order from an angle that cut through places, allowing us to examine why the Jedi needed to exist, why they were destined to end, and whether or not they could or should rise again. Which I thought was cool. That was probably the most intriguing thing out of this whole thing, and because I think they're just kind of toying with this idea of, we know the rise of Skywalker's coming. We know Luke Skywalker is gone. The Jedi Order is no more. There's been a lot of debate, a lot of questions about whether or not the Jedi Order would rise again, and if they would they be called a Jedi, that kind of thing. And this kind of teases that out. I think it's kind of setting us up for maybe something that we're finally going to see or get a definitive answer for in the Rise of Skywalker.
Right. But I think you're right. You have to temper the expectations on this book that it's not going to deliver you a story that answers all of those types of questions and really sets it up. So it's a little, to me, that feels a little misleading.
Well, it says the secrets of the Jedi.
Right. Yeah. I thought the one thing I thought was interesting in here, though, and it's getting a little bit of buzz out there, was they had on the, they call them Force spirits, right? Not Force ghosts, but Force spirits. Mm-hmm. And they made Luke makes a comment in there that the skill is only passed down to very select Jedi. And they name Yoda, they name Obi-Wan, and then they name Anakin. And that, of course, that's going to set a part of the fandom off maybe just a little bit, saying, how the heck could they have passed that down to him when he really had no training whatsoever, especially what we saw that Yoda went through in the Clone Wars series, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't, it's a little, that part's a little bit confusing. And I have
a theory for that, which we'll get to.
I want to hear it.
It's actually one of the questions that we have tonight. So I think it was Utini or somebody threw that question out there. So we'll address that here in just a little bit. But yeah, the idea first that they used the word spirits instead of ghosts was already, setting people abuzz. And then
I don't mind that part.
Yeah, I know. Because we'll get to it because the priestesses and all that, right?
Right.
But anyways, this looks like a great book. I mean, if nothing else, it's a beautiful book. And even if there is nothing in here that's groundbreaking or new or exposed in any way, I think it's probably worth picking up if just to have it. And Luke wrote it, so right.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, I think when was the date? Was it? I said October. I'm probably pulling that right on my other end. November 19th.
Oh, there you go.
I was way off. Samsonite. Yeah, November 19th. So look for that one here pretty soon. Here we go. So Don Williams, the brother of John Williams, has said that they've scored 135 minutes of the music for the new movie. 34 minutes are in the can. And you mentioned this. Every theme is supposed to be represented in the soundtrack.
Yeah, this was a video from the Academy of Scoring Arts. And actually, give a quick shout out. AskHim82 tagged us on Instagram, which is how I first saw this. So appreciate you tagging us on that one to check it out. But and it's not like you're going to hear every single theme as we've heard them in every single movie. They're going to be in your face and they're going to be loud and boisterous or whatever it is. But they're going to be very subtle. And this is what John Williams, of course, has done in a lot of movies where he changes the theme and twists it just slightly so you get elements of it. And it's really masterfully interwoven into other themes as well. And you get this nice blend. But it's one of these things. And then, like I said on Instagram, back to Ask Him 82, was that's a really tall order to do. Yeah. But with a guy like John Williams, you're like, it seems possible. And it seems like it still might work out okay and not be a complete train wreck. And so, but it's really interesting though, that he's able to do that and his mind just works. I mean, 87 years old, right? And he's still able to craft this type of thing. And I mean, craft is the right word for John Williams because he is able to just manipulate and take the themes that we know and make them into something that feels completely new, but it's so rooted in what we know and what we've loved that he continues to just churn out amazing score after amazing score. And it challenges us in different ways to to think about the music and then interpret the music as well.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. If anybody can do it, it's him. I mean, he is the source material, if you will, for a lot of this music. And he brings obviously a very interesting and different perspective than somebody like me. Like the idea of trying to meld all of these, melodies together and these themes together and all that. I mean, it's just, as much as I love music and as much as I appreciate music of all varieties, it's like overwhelming for me. Like, I don't even know how to begin with that. And it just kind of speaks to how ingenious this guy really is to be at his age and be able to kind of do something like that, to your words, craft something like that, because it's essentially what it is. But I think, again, if anybody can do it, it's going to be him. So, I mean, that gives us something to look forward to. Like, I'm pretty excited about this soundtrack. The soundtracks have always been something that, we've talked about on the show. We've never really done anything hardcore about the music. Cantina Radio was probably the closest we did when we were kind of breaking that down and talking about some of the themes in that. But, as someone who, I speak for both of us here, that really appreciate the music and what it does for Star Wars, as good as Star Wars is without the music, I'm pretty excited about this. I can't wait to see what he does and really be able to kind of play that game of, oh, here's that one, or here's this part, or I realize what he's done here, that kind of thing. And he's given us that over the years, obviously, especially with the more recent movies. So pretty excited. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, there's always a lot of expectation tied up in it, so it's tough to deliver on that every single time. But we're all hoping for a big blowout to wrap this thing up.
Yep. Yeah. The other bit of news is Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World, Florida. They have, I guess, 3 pages up now where you can make reservations for, and you tell me if I'm saying this right, Oga's Cantina?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
And then Savi's Lightsaber Shop and the Droid Builder. So you can already make these reservations. Is that where you're going? Are you going to Disney World?
Yeah, we're going to Disney World, which is in Orlando.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cancel my October trip. And this spoils here. But I am still going in November. And yeah, I went ahead and booked a couple of reservations at the Cantina. What's interesting about the Cantina is you only get to book it only lets you stay for 45 minutes. It's really like a cocktail type of thing. They don't have, it's not a dining event, even though they're kind of showing it as a lunch or dinner type of thing. They just do a couple little bite-sized snack type foods. But
yeah,
I was talking with Katie a little bit because she went out to the one in Disneyland out in California. And I believe she was going to the preview night, which just happened out in Florida. And I'm trying to get her take on, which drinks to get or anything like that. She hadn't tried the food yet, but yeah, went and booked a couple of those, booked a couple for the lightsaber shop because please just go and take all my money. And Haley got really interested in wanting to do it because she just wants to do everything, even if she doesn't want to keep it. So we're just going to try to shape those decisions a bit.
Yeah.
So whatever that second $200 lightsaber is, somehow appeals to me. I think we're going to save the droid builder though. But yes, I did get some reservations. There was a lot of website problems when this went on, but I think even Jason and I think even Crowley got some in there. I was talking with him. I think he's going in December, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So a couple of people are going to head out that way and towards the end of this year and get to be able to do this. None of us going to be there at the same time, which is disappointing.
So the more interesting thing here, and not to, I don't want to I feel like we're burying the lead. There's a link on there for the Oga's Cantina where if you click on it, it'll take you to the menu and you can kind of see what some of these are. The names are really cool. Like this is where I spent all my time was looking at the names. Like they got the Mustafarian lava roll. They got a Bloody Rancor, which is an alcohol concoction of some sort. Blue Bantha. And this is all new to me. The miss though, the huge miss in my opinion was when you get down to the hot beverages, they have got a cafe latte, a double espresso, and a cappuccino. Why would they not seize the opportunity to call those calves? Like
I don't know. Or why didn't it come up with like a better name for it?
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Give me a better name then. Right. But at least if you're not going to go that far, you've already got something that's well established and referred to in just about every freaking novel. Someone's drinking calf of some sort. Right.
Right.
But anyways, I thought that was a missed opportunity for sure. So shame on them for doing that. There are other great drinks on here. They have a T16 Skyhopper, Tito's handmade vodka, Bowls melon liqueur, kiwi half and half for $16. $16.
Yeah, the one that Katie recommended was the Jedi Mind Trick, which is $14. But yeah,
it's
Kettle One Botanical, grapefruit and rosé vodka, stuff I can't pronounce, curacao, grape juice, lime juice, grapefruit bitters. So, yeah, I mean, if you like to drink, and it sounds like that Oga's might be for you, for your whole 45 minutes you're able to sit there.
There's a ton of them. And that's cool. They got some without alcohol.
There's so many.
The blue Bantha, blue milk served chill with Bantha-inspired vanilla butter sugar cookie. That sounds delicious. They got a hyperdrive punch it with Powerade. Nobody drinks Powerade.
Sounds like diabetes in a glass.
Rhodian ration. I mean, these are just really cool names. I do enjoy it. So that was the stuff that I got hooked on. Batu Bits. That sounds disgusting.
That's the snack and
the snack.
Yeah.
But so that was cool. I did get a chance to look at the Savi's lightsaber workshop, and I looked at some of the owner's manuals. Did you look at these?
No.
Like, you can pull up the owner's manual for the R2 droid and the BB-8 droid, and it tells you like how to turn it on and reset it and stuff. I don't know. It was all interesting stuff. So there's plenty to do here. If you're bored like me and have nothing else to do, we'll put the links. Read the manual, because that was interesting itself. I'm digging around in this stuff looking for hints of some sort, knowing that I'm not going to find anything really of value, which I didn't, but it was still cool nonetheless.
Oh, thanks for looking.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. I think that's it. That's all we got for news.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into our questions. And first off, thank you everyone for submitting these. There's some really good ones in here, and there's some really good ones in here. Who's up first? You want to take the first one, or you want me to take the first one here?
I'll take it. So Emperor Moonwalker, so Josh, part of the crew. These are our Patreon ones first here. So thanks everyone for the contributions. And of course, as one of the perks, we guarantee we'll answer your questions. So his is, if you were Kathleen Kennedy and could handpick your replacement for a Lucasfilm president, who would that be if it was inside the organization except Dave Filoni? And who if it was from outside?
So somebody from the inside and somebody from the outside to replace Kathleen Kennedy if I were Kathleen. Oh, so for the record, I'm not Kathleen Kennedy. So I'll make that very clear.
Man, dreams are dashed.
Yep. Man, Josh coming out punching this month with this question, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a jerk.
So, all right. So for the inside replacement, I'm going to pick someone who's been at Lucasfilm probably since maybe the mid 80s or so. He hasn't been there from the very beginning, but he was definitely there when Lucas was around. And so he's got good roots, right? Good bones, if you will. And interesting enough, he's one of the co-creators of Adobe Photoshop. So him and his brother, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right. So him and his brother started Adobe Photoshop, which we all know is, software editing or photo editing software back in 87. He was like the visual effects supervisor on the special editions. I think he was also the supervisor for the prequels, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, I'm speaking of none other, of course, than John Knoll, who was also came up with the story. We have him to thank for the Rogue One story, because that was his idea and his baby. He kind of birthed that long ago. But today he's currently the chief creative officer and senior visual effects supervisor over at ILM. So he's just like a down to earth guy too. I mean, he's been in the movies. I think he was in the Phantom Menace as well. I think he was one of the pilots there on Naboo. But he's a very down to earth kind of guy. He seems like one of these true fans who's just got a really brilliant mind, right, in the way of special effects. So, and really not just for Lucasfilm, like for other things as well. I mean, he sits on like a board for special effects in the industry and that sort of thing. So he's probably a huge underdog, but he'd get my vote just simply out of his love for the show, love for the franchise, and his level of creativity.
Yeah, for in-house. You want to give him the vote, or you want to give it to like Doug Chiang, right?
Yeah,
because Doug Chiang, when we were at Celebration, they had some videos playing while we were in line for the store, or maybe it was one of the panels that was going on, and just listening.
He had
to
a panel there, I think.
Yeah, just listening to him talk and to see his artwork, and of course he came in with the prequels and basically was the Ralph McQuarrie for the prequels, right?
Right.
And it was just amazing. And he's a VP today, executive creative director. So if you're looking for the dark horses, I think you're right. John Knoll and Doug Chiang are the two that surface because we recognize their names and their contributions to Star Wars specifically. But if I'm looking from a more pragmatic business standpoint, the one who seems that is best positioned already is probably Lemon Brennan, who's the executive VP today and general manager. And she was president of ILM back in like when it was really taking off, and just has a ton of credits to her name as well. She's been in Skywalker Sound, and she does all the business strategy, all the implementation for the company vision, all this other stuff. So when you look at it, who's positioned from a successor in succession planning, she seems to be the one. If Kathleen Kennedy were to decide to retire or move on or something like that, if you were moving people up in the food chain, she seems like she would be the most, logical choice from that perspective. And she's kind of got the business acumen to go with it, apparently.
Yeah, I think she's definitely got the chops to do it. And I actually had her down too. The other, for all the same reasons you did, and I don't want to regurgitate those. I think the only other people that I threw out there as maybes, and these are probably like fanboy picks, but like somebody like Ron Howard or even J.J. Abrams down the road. I think Ron Howard, I don't know, that's probably just a soft spot in my heart to pick him. But he's was kind of was under the wing of George Lucas at one point. He did Solo. We know he's a big fan of the franchise. Can he do it? I don't know if he's got the executive chops to kind of pull something like that off. But somebody like Abrams probably could. I don't think Abrams would do it. I think he's still way too young to be kind of sitting back and taking over something like this. But depending on my opinion of Episode 9, he is one of the few people that I think I would entrust the franchise to and know that they would do good by it. Right. There's probably a pretty short list in terms of people like that right now that I would, that are not already tied up in like Marvel, like Kevin Feige. I think he's amazing, but is he going to drop that and pick up something like Star Wars? Probably not, but
right.
So
if you're looking outside of Lucasfilm, then do any names come up?
Outside of Lucasfilm? Oh boy.
I'm not very well versed in a lot of this, because I would look at like a Kevin Feige type of guy, someone who just has experience running a shop, kind of end-to-end long-term vision. Like he seems like he has the chops. I don't know what he does as far as company ownership, if you will, and strategy setting and vision setting and things like that. It seems like he's got a lot of the skills. I don't know how well they translate to corporate leadership as well as creativity and direction and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That was the only one that would probably come to mind. Although I like Brad Bird. Again, he seems to have another one of these. He's kind of one of these visionary type people. So,
right.
But yeah,
basically anybody that runs Pixar.
Yeah, pretty much anybody at Pixar is a visionary, in my opinion. All right, thanks, Imperial Moonwalker. Let's go to Utini. The Kaminoans were not well known enough to be on the radar of the Jedi, but they describe this clone army as the best they've ever created. How could they be making a clone army? How could they be making clone armies now and then it not be known by the Jedi? Sure, Sifo-Dyas could have purged more than just a location of the planet, but most Jedi were alive before that. And there's another part here. On a similar note, if the Kaminoans weren't regularly making clone armies, how could they maintain the infrastructure to produce 200 units with 1 million more on the way? Sure, the very long-term contract that they had at the very long-term contract that had a, quote, the Jedi will contact you, don't contact them ever clause could have provided those funds, but then how could they have maintained a planetary commerce identity of being cloners unless they do a lot of cloning work, but still not be so large that the Jedi should have not heard of them? So, and then he's saying this kind of addresses. So, in short, to wrap up, I mean, there's a lot there. Of course, it's Utini, but he wants to know why the Jedi didn't know about the Kaminoans.
Yeah. Thanks, Dante. Sincerely, thank you. Man, yeah, this is tough. So there seems to be a history. Oh, gosh, some of this is you've got to piece together kind of what you want to believe in order to make the story work. I think that they probably were well-known cloners on this scale. I think you're right. I don't know that they clearly didn't have this type of scale, but had they ramped that infrastructure up that fast? I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. And I don't know that I have a good answer for that, because they may have been known for producing quality clones, but more small batch. And they were consistent enough that they were able to, feel confident that they were able to do this. And I don't know what, you have to kind of define what small batch is. Maybe they were able to do 10,000 at one point or 50,000. And they said, well, okay, well, that could scale. And then once they had the funds come in, they were able to ramp the scale up, because clearly they had 200,000 within, I mean, how many years was this, Albert? 10?
Yeah, 10 years? Yeah, it's probably about 10 years because...
Yeah, it was 10 years, right? That's right, because Obi... Yeah, the whole Sifo being dead. Right, so 10 years to get 200. You had to ramp up here to get to another million within just another short few years. Shows you had an influx in order to build all the infrastructure around it. Now, how quickly they can do that, they live on a water planet, all these other things, all the logistics side of that is, I think, where you have to start suspending just a touch. But how do the Jedi not know about this? They probably know about cloning, but I bet you they don't. I don't know. They stick their head in the sand a lot. So should we just chalk this up to Jedi ignorance or Jedi oversight? Or was it they were small potatoes for so long that they didn't really catch the eye of the Jedi for really any particular reason?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, this is where the size of the galaxy becomes convenient for Star Wars storytelling. Yeah. And what I mean by that is storytellers have this convenience of like making the size of the galaxy super compact in order to kind of drive a narrative or drive a story that they want to and tell a story that they want to when they need it. But then they can also make it feel like very massive and expansive, sprawling kind of galaxy where everything, there's no way any one faction or any one group could really have a full pulse on everything that happens in the galaxy. And I always took that line of the best ever to kind of mean that they are in the business of, or have been in the business of like creating clones for other smaller scale skirmishes or maybe rivals, societies or factions, that kind of thing. And they could have been creating clones, honestly, for non-humans with great success. But with humans, it was always a little bit trickier. They were always a little bit more unpredictable until this recent batch. And I think that was I always kind of saw this as it was kind of to your point, it was like a proof of concept. Cloning probably happens all over the galaxy in small pockets. And there's probably a lot of people that don't do it really well. And they got their lucky break, almost like an IPO, right? They did everything right. They got their first batch out, and suddenly they were hit with a huge amount of funds and ramped up that to get them all out as quickly as possible. Well, while that's all going on, the Jedi are out here doing other things, being hubris and turning a blind eye and not really caring about just kind of self-indulge and focusing on themselves, that kind of thing. And maybe that's what led to them not being able to see it. You could also throw in the aura of the dark side, right? The shroud of the dark side was clouding them in some way and wasn't allowing. Maybe it was Palpatine who was, protecting that planet, or the activities that were going on, keeping the Jedi from seeing. I'm just kind of spitting out theories here at this point, but yeah, I would agree it's pretty much in line with what I believe too. I think they just were doing it small scale, and they got a big order in, did it really well, and next thing you know, they've got a full army right in front of them. So.
Yeah. Next time we get together for beers, Dante, we'll have to get your thoughts and debate this one a bit. Because I'm sure he has like 1,000 ideas about it.
Yeah. Probably better than mine.
Are you testing us again? I love giving him a hard time. Thanks, bud. We appreciate the question. All right. For Malice. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda tells Obi-Wan of the secrets. Okay. And says that he'll teach him. So this goes back to our news item about the Force spirits. Yeah. I assume that while in exile on Tatooine, Obi-Wan spends the majority of his time learning the secrets. How is it that when Vader, a Sith, dies, we see him as a Force Ghost Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi? I thought only Jedi were capable of becoming Force Ghosts, not to mention that it presumably took Qui-Gon, Yoda, and Obi-Wan years to master it. Even if Vader reverted to Jedi Anakin in the end, he didn't have enough time to master the secrets, even if he somehow knew about it. I think I said Force Ghost enough to last me a while. I truncated a lot of this. So that's probably why it didn't make as much sense, because it was pretty long. But So there you go. Let's continue the news item. So how does Anakin learn the secrets?
Secrets. That's what we should have called this. Episode 288, right. The Secrets.
Secrets.
All right. So I think in its simplest form, I think this is explained because as Anakin or Darth Vader had already been in the pursuit of, the secret to eternal life, right? He was already looking for it either as, again, what I'm trying to say is either as Anakin Skywalker or as Darth Vader. He was already kind of in pursuit of this, and in part because Sidious kind of spoiled the beans on it and said, hey, this is possible, kind of dangled that carrot out there for him. But he wasn't able to complete the training because he was a Sith, right? and he was a practitioner of the dark side. We know that to be true. That, well, for all intent, for at least for right now, at this time before this movie comes out here, we know that to be true. That the Sith just simply cannot become Force ghosts. So when he redeemed himself in the eyes of like the will of the Force, that allowed either Kenobi or Yoda the ability to kind of complete his training, in those last moments, even if it was just mere seconds. We don't know how long he was. We assume he just passed out. We assume he just died there in Return of the Jedi when Luke kind of lays his head down. For all we know, he may have passed out. Luke carried his body out. He was still conscious. We don't know how much time passed there. It wasn't a whole lot. But in those moments is where I would think at that point they kind of finished his training. And I guess my other theory here is the priestesses, right? The Force priestesses that we saw in the Clone Wars and the Lost episodes, I think, with Yoda, I kind of always saw this as like an exclusive club. So even though you learn, even though if, let's say you're even on the light side, I'll just go that far. If you're on the light side and you learn about how to become a Force ghost, it's nothing that you can go get on your own. I saw this as more like the priestesses showed Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon was able to kind of pull, or by invitation, bring in Yoda. By invitation, Yoda was able to bring in Kenobi. And by invitation, the three of them, one of them, whoever, was able to bring in Anakin. So in other words, what I'm saying is, even though he completed the training, it's like a one-way kind of entrance. You have to be invited to kind of join the Force Ghost. And that's what, so on top of the Sith not being able to join because they're the dark side users, they still need to know somebody in the inside there. That's the part of the secret. That's the secret, is that there has to be somebody that kind of pulls you in. That's my theory.
Well, that's a theory. I don't know.
Think of it as an exclusive club or organization where everyone kind of wants to go, but only those that meet the certain qualifications, light side, and are invited can never get in.
No, I think that's an interesting perspective, and I hadn't thought about it that way, so I think that's pretty good. And Tuan, this is something that's really difficult to say because we really have zero idea.
Yeah,
we have to purely speculate this thing. I think the other thing you could probably go on a bit of a tangent with as well is what we saw in the comics, where Vader he was able to step through the portal and have some sort of experience that way, like we saw in the Vader 25 comic. And so were there others that he was able to somehow, to your point, learn about it? And then, and then to firmly take your point, since he already had the inside scoop and some others kind of pulling for him, and I don't know, this feels like work all of a sudden. Like, hey, I know a guy.
Yeah, right.
Trust me, he's really okay, except for all of the kids he killed. He's fine. But so did he learn enough along the way? At least what they were, but even, I'm trying to recall back to the Clone Wars episodes though, and they really tested Yoda, whether he was worthy or not. He had to confront his own personal demons in order to proceed. There were a series of challenges that he had to overcome. So it's really difficult to still understand, even after all these years, how the hell this was even possible.
Yeah.
Right. Aside from George's really ultra simple explanation of, well, he was a Jedi and Jedi can do it. You know?
Right.
Now we have 30 years of explanation that have had this was possible, but it's still really difficult to try to shoehorn in Anakin coming back and then it being young Anakin all of a sudden. So anyway,
the people demand answers.
That's right. Albert gave you a better one than I did.
Oh, thanks. I don't know if that's true or not. I completely pulled that on my rear end. So you're welcome.
No, that's a tough one, man. This is the subject of debate. I don't know. I imagine fairly frequently. If you were to get any group of people in the room, this one's if this comes up, it probably goes in 10 different ways and probably some heated argument.
Yeah, and it never was a debate. It would never was a debate until Phantom Menace, and
right.
until the prequels, I should say, right? Because we just at the end of for me,
special edition started.
Well. True.
As soon as they put, oh no, you're right. Yeah, when Hayden went in there, yes, that was 05, 07. When did he actually slip into the re-release?
I don't know. It was later.
Yeah.
My point is originally when they're all kind of standing there dead at the end of Return of the Jedi when it first came out, even before Hayden got there, right? He turns around and I forget who was the actor.
Sebastian Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw. Thank you. When he turns around, I never thought much about it. Like, oh, he's he's a Jedi. It's like to George Lucas's point, he's a Jedi and that's what they do. Okay, cool. But it wasn't until we got to the prequel trilogies that this became controversial in terms of like, okay, well, he did all these horrible things. How the heck has he now been, redeemed after what we've seen him do as the young Anakin Skywalker, and then turning to Darth Vader and killing the innocent kids and all that. So,
well, and Qui-Gon, right?
Well, and Qui-Gon, yeah, sorry, that's a big part.
Qui-Gon didn't disappear when he was killed, and we were like, "What the hell?
Yeah, well, wait a minute, what happened?" Right.
And then we learned that his training wasn't. That's where it gets really messy, really fast. If he was already on the path, but didn't get far enough along in order to manifest himself, unless he was in a kind of a Force Nexus point, right? Like he was in the Clone Wars series during the Mortis arc.
Yeah.
Without all that, that was the only way. If you believe that was truly Qui-Gon, and Mike's already yelling at the editor right now, I can hear him.
It's not.
So yeah, but how does any of that line up? It's really tough, but it's a fun debate though.
Yeah, so definitely fun to talk about.
Yeah, when this comes out, I guess we're gonna have a lot to talk about at Dance.
Cool. Thanks, Tuan, for that one. Okay, next up, JW says, depending on the pronunciation, do you think Claude should have a ship either called Jean-Claude or Claude 9?
No, you mean Cloud 9.
Oh, Cloud 9.
Yeah. So for folks maybe have forgotten who Claude is, this is the slug that we saw in the Rise of Skywalker. I don't know. This wasn't Vanity Fair, was it? This was before that. This was like a publicity type of shot or something.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the source of this was. I don't know. But which ship? Jean-Claude or Claude? I got to go Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude.
Yeah, because why not? Jean-Claude Picard. Wait, am I allowed to do that?
Oh, I don't think you're crossing the streams. You can't do that. I'm going to go with the Cloud, but I think his name. So I like both of those, but I think Cloud Atlas is another opportunity here, another ship name that they come up with. Or
the big one.
The more obvious choice would have been the Cloud Car.
What about the Claude Bod?
No, Cloud Car from Bespin.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
Yeah.
Awkward pause.
It sounded a lot better in my head. All right. Just go on, move on. Let's get next question.
Thanks, Jeff. That was as awkward as he had hoped it would be. I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So from our Discord channel, Archangel, why do the Sith have the desire to train an apprentice? Surely they understand that if they train up an apprentice, that it will lead to their own destruction. What benefit is it for the Sith Master to have an apprentice? Is it a power play or subjugation? Is it to pass on knowledge? Is it to fight the Jedi? Or is it to bring others into the darkness that also corrupts them? I'm sure it could be anything, but I don't understand why wouldn't a Sith just train the person who would be the death of them? Sadistic.
This is one of those questions this is one of those things that just creeps up all the time with the Sith and thinking about. So I think at its core, I think the reason is like with most things when it comes to the Sith, it's selfish, it's self-serving to have an apprentice, even at the expense of knowing that one day one of them is going to die at the hands of the other. And for one, so we learned in like Star Wars Rebels that the Sith temples and some of the artifacts were designed only to work when there were two of them together. So there's again, it's kind of selfish, but they have to have somebody there in order for that to work. And maybe they've done that by design purposely so that they would ensure that there was always at least two and they didn't go kill each other. Second, I think it was understood that even for all of their selfish tendencies, the Sith did value the destruction of the light and the Jedi specifically. So, to ensure that happened, there was almost kind of this larger sense of obligation to ensure that they were passing along the teachings and training so that they wouldn't die out and they could extinguish the Jedi at some point. You got to have a backup plan. You got to have, forces. Bane realized that he didn't want all these forces because they eventually would just kill each other. And that's why he kind of narrowed it down to two if you want to go tap into Legends. But I think thirdly, the Sith adopted this always watch your back approach as a way to kind of keep themselves on their toes and never really become complacent in thinking that, there wasn't always someone out there who wanted your power, or wanted to destroy your power, or take your power. And through that, I think they probably felt like it increased their power and their control over the Force, just being able to kind of live in that environment. I mean, you had to worry about the Jedi and all of your enemies, but on top of all that, you had to worry about the person that you were, close to, or that your apprentice, or whether it was your master. So no one was safe, right? You weren't safe from anybody, and that really kind of kept an edge on you that you needed in order to kind of harness the dark side kind of power.
Yeah, those are great points. I think I look at it a bit simpler of you can't do it alone. I think to your point earlier, you had to have two to be able to do certain things. I think it's always helpful to have, well, you could call it a minion or a lackey too, but a very powerful one to go out and be the enforcer, and someone that you can trust to at least forward your agenda, even if at some point they're going to try to, usurp you and supplant your power, or supplant you with them, right? They want that. But I think sometimes that's a good thing. You want some ambition behind them, and you want someone who at least are aligned enough with your values in order for the greater, your greater good to be pushed forward. And I like your point of they do have common goals, right? Yeah. So it's not that they're always completely at odds, but you're right. The way that they go about things and the way they treat one another and all of that, just kind of par for the course. But at the end of the day, they do have a common goal. They have common enemies as well. And you just kind of take the good with the bad.
Yeah, a lot more bad than good, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But
cool.
Thanks, Archangel.
I love that question. I love those talking about that stuff too. Just always comes up at some point in novels and movies and whole thing. So, I got the next one here. So is it T-Lure44, Terrence Fluart? I hope I said that right. Sorry, buddy, if I...
Yeah, one of our new guys.
Yep, one of our new Discord members. How would you go about explaining Star Wars to a person that has not been interested in it? And would you have them watch the movies in chronological order, or the order in which they were released, while integrating other canon like the animated series, or stick strictly to the trilogies?
Oh boy. Yeah. That's always this is one of my least favorite questions, is the which order to watch the movies in, because everybody has a super strong opinion, and I don't have a real clear opinion about how I like it, because I recently saw them 1 through 6, and I got to be honest, I kind of didn't mind it. And I know that's sacrilege, because most people are like 4 through 6, then 1 through 3, or they have this really weird, I forgot what the method is called, but where you intermix them in a certain way to try to, I guess, reduce the spoilers, but still get the flavors of them. But 1 through 6, I really didn't mind that much. And if I was a kid, or if I was getting my kid into it, some of that is kind of helpful for them to see, even though you could argue kind of cheapens the Empire Strikes Back a little bit. I think is the one that we're always very protective over, right?
Yeah.
We want that big reveal to still mean something. And if you watch the other 3 and 4, there's no big surprise.
Right.
But how would you explain Star Wars? Wow, that's a really tough one, because I've had to try to do this a few times, and it's never really gone well, because it's how does George always explain it, right? It's like it's a space Western, or a space opera, or a flashback to the serials of the 50s and 60s. I mean, he's kind of all over the place. And if you're talking to a 30 something, do those things mean much to them if they've not seen Star Wars?
No, I try to explain that this was to my own kids, that this was a take on, Flash Gordon. Who's Flash Gordon? Like, what? You don't know who Flash Gordon is? Nope. They have no idea what that is. They don't know what serials are. They don't know where a lot of this stuff was rooted from. I tried to bring up Kurosawa and Hidden Fortress, tried to make my wife watch that. She fell asleep within 10 minutes. So it's hard to explain, because and if you have a lot of that context, it's kind of cool, because you're like, oh, okay, I can see those elements, that kind of thing. But if not, I think the only thing that helps is that, because Star Wars, trying to explain Star Wars back in the late 70s, early 80s is a lot different than it is today, because we have so many more, franchises and science fiction stories, and people just, you can just say, oh, it's a story about a bunch of people flying around spaceships with aliens and blasters or laser bolts and stuff like that, right? That's all kind of common knowledge. It's part of our lexicon. We talk that language now these days, but I think it's easier to explain these days than maybe it was in the past. In terms of the order of the stories, yeah, and I think this question's come up and maybe in a different variation at one point in one of these shows that we've done. And the way I explained it then, I said it really just depends. I think it depends on the audience, their age, attention span, level of interest, etc. I use the analogy of my own children. I tried to go 4, 5, 6 because that's how I learned to watch the movies and appreciate the movies. It was a complete and utter disaster. They were not interested in episode 4 because they couldn't get past the special effects, and they couldn't get past the special effects of even like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. They were nitpicking all of it. And then I was like, so we took a break, and I was like, this is going horribly wrong. I failed at life, failed as a father. Then I took the prequel trilogies and put those in and started with episode 1, and they loved them. They absolutely loved them. The special effects were better. They loved Jar Jar Binks. I've mentioned that on the show many times before. And it allowed them to kind of get used to Star Wars in a different way. They kind of came in with a different mindset, after seeing, how updated it was compared to the original trilogy. And that for them, even though the original trilogy was, I'll use it, lukewarm.
You didn't.
Yeah, sorry. It allowed them to kind of really enjoy the original trilogy and appreciate the original trilogy. And by the way, we also did watch like Rebels and Rogue One. And I think when you add those into the mix, it really changes. It changes your footing. It can change the footing for some people that may be thrown off by 4, 5, and 6 for whatever reason. And I would say in the last year or two, they've really become pretty even Stevens when it comes to like the original trilogy and prequel trilogy. We can actually sit down and I'll throw in Empire Strikes Back and they'll jump on the couch and watch it with me. And I, don't hear anybody fussing about it. So, but yeah, make no mistake about it. They enjoy the prequel trilogy more than the original trilogy. But as I said on this show before, the sequel trilogy, that's their trilogy. That is their Star Wars. They live, breathe, die by Kylo Ren and Rey and Poe and Finn and BB-8. They are all in on those characters, and these other ones are really cool characters that Dad likes, but those are their movies and they own those movies, which is kind of cool. Which is, I think, what they wanted, right, with the sequel trilogy. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but that's kind of where we are.
You have any opinion about the animated series? Then we've got a few with Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance now, and even the Galaxy of Adventures and Forces of Destiny. So do any of those stick out as something that would be a good first step? I mean, we've got Lego Freemaker and things like that as well.
Yeah. Well, I would stay away from the Freemakers because that's almost, unless they're just a diehard Lego fan, or
if they're really, really young.
Yeah, or if they're really young, right? Yeah. That's true. I mean, they'll definitely be attracted to those. But there's a lot of inside jokes too where you have to kind of watch all of the movies and understand a lot of the jokes and puns and stuff like that to kind of fully appreciate those.
Right.
The Forces of Destiny stuff, that's the thing. My daughter, she really enjoyed those and she still watches those. They haven't made any in quite some time.
But you still kind of have to know who the characters are a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the Galaxy Adventures is still bang for your buck in terms of how much time it takes to watch those things in 60 seconds. Yeah. They throw a lot at you. And if you're not really up on Star Wars, I think they do it in a really pretty slick way. Even if they have taken some creative liberties with how things really transpired and as far as what we saw in the movies and how they're depicted in that animation form, I really enjoy those as kind of your gateway to kind of introduce people to Star Wars if they really are kind of coming in cold.
I really like those as well. The only concern I have is if you go watch that and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to go watch the movie. Wow, you are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Like you said, as far as like pacing, and again, the way that movies were made back in the, 30, 40 years ago, not have the same kind of pacing that we're used to now consistently for it through 2.5 hours.
Yeah. It's like when he turns off the tractor beam, like the.
Right. Oh, man, it's such a great, that was a really good impression, Albert. Nicely done.
Thank you. I've been doing it for about 40 years.
All right. Well, I think we beat that one to death. So thanks, Terrence. We appreciate the question. All right. One of the coolest names on Discord, Dev Sabwara. Do you think it's possible we'll get any more of Shmi and the Rise of Skywalker? Could she be tied into the origin story of the Skywalker name or line?
I think depending on the direction of the movie and what the Rise of Skywalker ends up meaning in the end, I think maybe we could get a mention of Shmi Skywalker in that movie, but my guess is it's still going to be pretty light and only probably a passing reference at best. The idea of more Shmi, though, in general, is something I've always wanted to read. I wanted to read it, see it, hear it. I don't know. Hopefully one day we'll get more. But that's like Yoda, right? In terms of background, that's just untapped and full of potential. Or maybe maybe there's no story there. But I would like to think that there's a lot more there, and they would be able to kind of come up with more than, the Force just consumed her and gave, birthed her child or conceived her child in some way.
Such dangerous territory, though.
It can be. No, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, it's like with Yoda. That's why nobody wants to touch it, right?
I think with Yoda, we're at least warming up to the idea of some of it, and you don't have to do. I mean, he's got 800 or 900 years, so kind of pick your timeline. You don't necessarily have to completely do the whole origin backstory with him. You can pick up at a different moment in his life. Shmi, it's difficult to understand. God, this sounds horrible, but it's difficult to understand like the importance that she plays, because the part of the story that we're most interested in tends to be the conception, right? So how did this happen in the first place and what that was? And I just think, man, I think that's just a really dangerous place to do anything with. Even, I mean, it's one of those things that I don't ever want to see that in a comic book. They flirted with it with the Vader comic, which I thought was fine. I thought that was actually pretty well done and had a nice little debate with it. But something kind of that pivotal, that serious, I definitely don't want to have explained that way in a comic format. I want a bit more serious medium for that. But I don't really expect much of Shmi to come up in Rise of Skywalker. They have a lot to resolve in this movie. And if they really are trying to tie the whole thing together, I always get worried about a movie being overburdened with having to revisit a bunch of it and to supply a lot of exposition in order to get everybody back where they need to be and to make a lot of sense out of it. And sometimes a simpler approach, even if you minimize some things or eliminate altogether for the, just to keep the story moving and to not overcomplicate it and not to, quite honestly, not to kind of wear us out as we go through it. And again, I'm not saying that we're not intelligent fans and that we're not able to process this stuff, but I think from just a general cleaner storytelling, it's difficult to keep working her back in any kind of significance. When might we get a passing glance or a passing reference or something that we might be able to debate and pick up? Maybe, but I'm not really holding my breath a whole lot.
Yep, I agree. And 100% with everything you said. And I would further state that is, to your point, it's nitroglycerin, right? You cannot get that wrong. And the ramifications of like really fleshing out that story or giving it more than just, she was conceived by he was conceived by the Force in Shmi. And if it's more than that, if there's other things that happen, other events that led up to that, the ramifications and the way we think about Star Wars and the way we think about Anakin's relationship with his mom and the Force and all of that gets touched. And that's why maybe that's kind of what you're trying to say is that it can go horribly, horribly wrong if they don't get it right. I still want to see it. Call me crazy, call me sick. I'm fine with, chicken penguins called porgs too. So whatever, give it to me.
You've got a Shmi crush too, but I feel like I have to explain myself really quick one more time, just so I don't get a ton of hate mail. But part of this is because I like having the vagueness and the mystery and the debate.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big chunk of my perspective on this is that I don't need that answered because you've had how many years since they learned of Anakin and Phantom Menace all the way to Last Jedi. You have this giant period of time and still no one really knows 100% the truth of all of that. Now, maybe it makes sense to revisit and to talk about the actual event, maybe less on Shmi, but more, again, it kind of gets more towards Anakin. But again, I like the vagueness of that. And I wouldn't mind it being revisited if it almost added to the vagueness and the debate of uncertainty about whether, let's just say Palpatine out of nowhere wants to talk about it, whether or not we believe him, and I think that type of thing is always more, to me, that's more fun than having it spelled out for me and to have me say, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, it was Palpatine all along. Okay. Yeah, cool. Or, is he lying? Yeah. And so to me, I think that's the fun part for me. And I think that's the part I don't want to lose because we've lost a lot of that already. We've explained a lot of things in Star Wars that we debated as kids. And a lot of that I think we're thankful for, but there's other aspects of it that I would prefer to just continue debating.
Yeah. So you're saying the Rise of Skywalker is referring to Shmi Skywalker?
Yeah, it's the Rise of Shmi Skywalker. I think we've answered it.
All right.
Let's go and shut the show down.
Yep. We'll see you all next week. Okay, quickly, 20 questions to Star-Lord. What is the armor used by Boba Fett in the Star Wars series?
Yeah, either Mandalorian or Beskar, right?
Yeah. I think that's the name of it, and I think he got that from his pops or something.
Here, I'll ask you the next one then. Which starship was used to upgrade Han Solo's beloved Millennium Falcon?
The ship exactly? I actually don't know this. I know it was like Imperial. Like I know he patched like Imperial. Maybe I'm getting Legends. I don't know if this Legends or canon. Sorry if I said the C word. I don't know if this was. I thought he put like Imperial like hull armor all over it and like affixed like the cannons and the missile launchers were like from some larger Imperial ships or something that Lando and Han did over the years. But I don't know that there was a ship specifically.
Yeah. So what was the freighter? What was the model of the freighter? Yeah,
YT 1300.
Right. Yeah, Corellian. Right.
Oh, is that what the question was?
I don't know.
I was overthinking that one. If that was the case.
Well, I did too. I was like, oh man, was there actually another ship that was kit bashed basically for this? I actually had to cheat and try to look this up, and I found nothing. So I like your answer though. I like where your head's at. But I thought we'd also just cover the base of whether or not he was just asking, what was the model of the ship?
Yeah, okay. This one's kind of easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Bail Organa is Princess Leia's adoptive father. What is the name of her? What is the name of the adoptive mother?
Breo, right?
Yeah.
Breo. All right.
You can find in Queen's Shadow.
That's right. Oh, yeah, a number of sources. All right, number 4. This isn't really 20 questions. He had 5. I just made a joke that was 20 questions. It was Star-Lord. All right, number 4. Lando Calrissian's operation on Cloud City mines what type of gas used in the operation as a weapon?
It was the Tabana gas.
Yes.
And that's also the gas that Luke holds up and sprays Vader with when they're fighting on Bespin there in the carbon chamber.
Oh, is that what that was?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Believe it.
Makes sense.
Here's the toughest question on this. What were the last words spoken in The Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, crumbs. Wasn't it Chewie and growling?
Well, okay, maybe. It says the last word spoken. So I don't know if that means English.
Luke actually says ow, I think.
Yeah, he says ow. And then
he's getting his hand poked.
He's getting his hand poked. And then you get like Chewie. Then you get R2. No, you get R2. Then you get Chewie. And then the very last thing is R2 making this like really sad beeping noise. He makes a beep and a whistle. And that's literally the last thing it said. So I always said that was him saying, I have a bad feeling about this. Because he doesn't sound happy at all.
Yeah. And Luke, I think, says, we'll wait for your signal. I think he says, may the force be with you, right?
Yeah. He says that right before he says ow, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he does ow at the hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It kind of depends on the interpretation. And Star-Lord did not give us answers to these questions. So I flipped the computer upside down to see if maybe they were hidden somewhere.
I didn't see it.
No, I didn't see it. Anyway, thanks, Star-Lord. We appreciate it, bud. All right. RockCod82. He's got a couple quick one here. When do you think they'll drop the next trailer?
There's a lot of content and media stuff coming in October. So I think that's probably when we'll see it. And that probably aligns
with what we had previously.
Yeah. For 7 and 8.
Okay. Part 2. Is episode 9 the last episodic movie, or will there be more? Will there be episode 10, etc.? And if there are more episodes, if the Skywalker saga is over with episode 9, will the episodic Star Wars movies feel the same without them, presumably without the Skywalkers?
Yeah. I mean, as much as I'd like for the Skywalker saga to go on and on, I do kind of feel like we won't see another saga movie, at least not in our lifetime. Maybe we get a standalone movie that falls in and around the timeline, whether it be from the prequel to the sequel trilogies. But in terms of an official episode 10, I think I'll be a terrible Force Ghost long before we that sees the light of day. That said, I think this saga will continue to have kind of a long and lasting effect on Star Wars, the universe, and continue to kind of influence and shape what's to come, from the 2 trilogies that are kind of in the works, maybe with Rian Johnson and what are they called? The Beer Brothers.
Benioff and Weiss.
Yeah, those dudes. But yeah, in Star Wars, but not just in, so, in all of Star Wars, really, I think this Star Wars, the Skywalker saga is going to continue to influence a lot of that. I mean, it's where it's grounded, right? That's ground zero. It's where all of this stuff comes from. So I think we'll still see bits and pieces from that.
Yeah. If we believe what they're telling us, then it's the last one. But once we see episode 9, we'll have a better idea if that seems like if there's even any opening to continue it or not. I think that'll be the true test. See if we can dig anything out of that. Maybe we'll dedicate a show to it of, is it at all possible to continue the story after what we've seen in Rise of Skywalker?
Mm-hmm. So Jar Jar 4507 says, when are y'all going to go to Galaxy's Edge? Did you put y'all in there, or he type that?
No, he put y'all.
Right,
that's why I left it in there.
Cool.
Right, and it had the apostrophe in the right place too. So folks, the apostrophe goes between the Y and the A.
Yeah.
You all. Yeah. Thanksgiving.
Never. Unless I started GoFundMe.
Well, yeah. Well, if you can get over like bringing the whole family with you, I can find a way to get some of you guys out there sooner.
You know what my biggest concern about going to Galaxy's Edge is I'm worried it's going to feel more like a business trip than a vacation. That I'm going to be like so fixated on trying to look at everything and memorize everything, and it's going to feel like work. It's almost like when we went to Celebration, right? There was moments in there where we felt like we weren't even really at Celebration, just enjoying it because we were so focused on, getting show content out and taking notes and really trying to bring stories and stuff that we want, our listeners and supporters would want to hear, that I kind of missed some of it. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a terrible situation to be in, right? Poor me.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah. Anyways, go on.
All right. Adamus. If Paps is actually back as the big bad, I'm going to be so disappointed. It ruins Anakin's story from episodes 3 and 6. Is there any way he comes back and it doesn't ruin the movie?
On some level, I would agree that it does. It could diminish Anakin's journey if he were to come back in some physical and mental way. Let's say if he was resurrected, right? Fully resurrected, Palpatine's back. I think, yes, I can see where that argument can be made. I think they could still cut their way out of that by having him, fulfill the prophecy once again and defeating Palpatine. But that's just way too messy for them to try to pull off in a single movie where neither Palpatine or Anakin have even really played a significant role in 7 or 8. Vader has, right, as kind of being this inspiration for Kylo Ren, but Anakin and Palpatine haven't. But I'm going to stick to my guns and say that I don't think Palpatine is back per se. I think it's going to be some sort of body possession or some host experience of some way. Like maybe even to counter this, the Force Ghost of Anakin comes back and takes over Rey's body, and Rey as Anakin Skywalker, possessed by Anakin Skywalker, fights Kylo Ren, who's been possessed by the Emperor or some other person that's been possessed by Emperor, and that way we get the whole fight, and we still get Anakin fulfilling the prophecy, just in a different kind of way or in a different twist kind of thing. Yeah,
this is tough. I mean, there's a part of me that has had to let go of everything that George Lucas told us was so about the Chosen One, that he fulfilled the prophecy. I mean, and I know that's pretty sacrilegious to say, but let's just, call it what it is. The story has taken off without George at the helm, and we have to kind of see how it's going to play, and we can't necessarily get completely stuck on what he told us the movie was about, because things are obviously evolving that. Now, directly to the point though, will it ruin them? Can he come back and not ruin the movie? I think that's entirely possible. I think where you run into the fears or some of the, like you were saying, some of the messiness is if he comes back, do you feel compelled you have to bring Anakin back? And then you start minimizing Rey, right, and them, right? So in your scenario where you take over a body with the Force spirit, well, that kind of cheapens Rey, right? And I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that, because if you do that, then you completely alienate this new base that you want to grow with you, and to still be completely bought in on these characters of Rey and Finn and Poe and all that, and de-emphasize some of the old ones. But so I don't know. I think you can still bring them back. Like you said, I think there are ways to do it that still can work and capture the excitement from folks like us in our generation, but still leave it to the new characters to find the solution to resolve the story, even if they're borrowing from the characters we know. And again, we'd love to see Hayden Christensen pop up. We'd love to see Mark Hamill contribute as Luke Skywalker in some way to a climactic battle that feels like it is a kind of a Marvel team up of sorts, right? But again, they've got to be the ones to the Rays are the ones that have to be the ones to actually be the conduit to wrap this up, even if there's a supporting cast kind of behind her.
Yeah, and before I get my hate mail, I don't like that last theory. I don't want her to be possessed. So, for the record,
noted.
I'm just finishing. This is from Arturo. I just finished reading Heir to the Empire. I know what took me so long. Anyway, I loved it and can't wait to read the other two books. My question is, what are your guys' thoughts on the Thrawn trilogy? Even if it's not canon anymore, I'm curious to hear what you think.
A lot of us have a very, it means a lot to us what the Thrawn trilogy, the original Thrawn trilogy, meant to us at that moment in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It had such a rekindling of fire and re-energizing Star Wars fans with a really compelling, fun, good story. And it's very difficult to, we might look back on that story with a bit of rose-colored glasses if you go back and reread it. I know some people have recently done that, and they maybe didn't enjoy it quite as much because it was a different way of telling stories as well, and a very different Star Wars environment than what we have today, which I think if you go back and reread any of the early books, you have a very different take on Star Wars than what we have now. But again, I think you have to still honor that. And you still have to consider, and what's really cool about it though, is that they're still bringing elements of those characters of Thrawn and even some of the peripheral stories around it. They're still bringing them back in. You still have Rook and all these other characters.
Paleon.
And what's that?
Oh, I said Paleon.
Yeah. And Paleon showed up in the latest Thrawn book as well. And it's great that they're still borrowing and leveraging that. And they're not necessarily changing those characters or some of those elements, full form, or they're not making a complete overhaul of it, which I think is really a testament. Of course, it's Timothy Zahn doing it, so you would hope he wouldn't go and rewrite everything. But it's that they have that confidence that these can translate into the more modern way of telling Star Wars stories is a testament to how well they were written and how much faith they have in Timothy Zahn in particular. And I'm kind of rambling, but I like these books. I like the original Thrawn trilogy. I think the new Thrawn trilogy is pretty solid as well. There's a few things I like better than others, but I think overall, I mean, you've got to honor the past, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just in terms of my opinion of it, I don't think we've ever talked about this. The Thrawn trilogy, the original ones, are my favorite Star Wars books, and Heir to the Empire is my favorite Star Wars novel of all time. And I know that's a strong statement, but it's kind of like when I talk about my favorite movie being Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a great movie, right? But there's an emotional experience that I had when I watched that movie for the first time, and this is very similar. That book resonates with me because of the time of my life and when it came out and where I was in my fandom. And it just came out of nowhere, and we really, really needed something like this as hardcore Star Wars fans that had been, relegated to these little tiny pockets of chitter chatter, but we wouldn't really make ourselves known that we were big Star Wars fans. It was just a very different time back then. And when this book came out, I mean, I just dove into the book and read it again and spent one summer, I think in 92 or 93, I think 92, read this thing beginning to end, over and over and over again, just took it all in. And it was just so, accessible. All the characters seemed like the characters from the movies, right? You had these new characters that were introduced, like Thrawn, Mara Jade, Talon Karrde. We didn't mention him. I mean, these great characters that came out of this novel. And for me, it felt like this was the official sequel. This was the official stuff that George Lucas had said he would never do. And I was getting a chance to read it. If I didn't get a chance to see it, at least I got a chance to read it. So, it's a great series. I think you're in for a full ride. Hopefully we haven't spoiled anything. I was trying not to spoil anything since you're about to read the last two, but I don't think they're as good as the first one, but overall the trilogy is my favorite. It's solid reading. It's great Star Wars fiction. So
it was really cool. It was able to do this and energize the fan base from a book. Now, granted, again, a different time. We didn't have a lot of media type of content, television, movies, anything like that, aside from crappy Ewok movies. But but it was that a book could energize a fan base like that was really telling for the time as well. And it's really cool when that type of thing can happen, because that's pretty rare these days, until they get made into a TV show or something like that. Very difficult for a book series to take off.
Cool. Thank you,
Arturo.
I
know there's a lot of examples of book series taking off, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Last question of the night. Is this from both of these guys, Utini and Dragon of the Abyss?
So Dante asked it, and then John is Dragon of the Abyss, and then I think he addressed it to me after I posted a picture. So,
all right. So he wants to know, how do you stay so fit?
Yeah. And this was in Discord. He asked this, and I posted a picture of a glass of beer. So that's, yeah. Yeah. And I think the other answer I may have had for him was, dad bod by beer or something along those lines. So, but yeah, no, we don't.
My answer is the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Yeah. See, your answer, you went the cookie cutter way.
Oh,
I was
fine.
keeping it real.
No caffeine, no carbs, no sugar, no fried foods, 900
Torchy's
calories a day.
tacos.
Only on the weekends, dude.
Only on the weekends. Yeah. Torchy's is a local, I don't know, what would you call it, like a boutique taco type of place?
Yeah, it used to be like a taco truck that turned into like a brick and mortar store, restaurant kind of thing.
Yeah,
and now
down here in Texas. They're awesome.
Amazing tacos.
So that's all our questions.
Got any shout outs?
Yeah. Oh, first of all, so thanks to everyone for all the questions. We really do appreciate it.
Yes.
Fantastic as always. A lot of fun. Shout outs. Yeah. So we got a new review, 5-star review from Slick Rick 2481. Actually left us a bunch of reviews across the network. So appreciate you taking the time to do that. I love listening to the show. It is where I get all my Star Wars news. I've been a Patreon member for a while and have not regretted it. So thanks again for that. Excellent place to listen to an open discussion about Star Wars and dive into all the things Star Wars fans might think about. Keep it up. Thanks so much, Rick. We appreciate it. And again, thanks for all the feedback across the shows and for your support on the Patreon channel. We hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. Slick Rick. That was a rapper.
Was it?
In the 90s. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Albert.
We got a new Patreon member, Kevin Mullen. So I think we mentioned him last show too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. He finally bit the bullet and is supporting the show financially. So thank you so much for doing that, because that definitely helps. Really appreciate you signing up for that. And then for Discord, we got a lot of new people. I'm just going to reel them off here. Kevin Mullen, Otto, Jawas Never Walk Alone, which I question whether or not they're a Liverpool fan. Hopefully they are. User 7954, Moof Milker, DJ Peterbilt, Redeemed Kylo Ren. Then there was a Redeemed Batman too. I don't know.
I think they left.
Did they leave? Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Don't know that one.
This is his brother. K Sander, Inner Sith, Wecco Widow. Hope I said that right.
I think that's Rob from Smoking and Drinking in Space.
Is it really?
I think so. I might be very wrong, but yeah.
Okay. Kashyyyk Chronic, Wilmac 23, T-Flu 44, who gave us a question tonight, Knickerdoodle, Steph Boy 99, and Jam Boy. Got a lot of boys here. So thank you all for joining Discord. Hopefully you found your footing and are having a good time getting acclimated to the environment and being offended by everything that Mike says. So
yeah, we do. That's for sure.
I do. Pissed me off tonight. No, I'm kidding. You didn't.
Right. So we did it just as a last plug before we get out of here. I did a Patreon exclusive show. We're recording this on the 12th of August, 2019. And on the 11th was my 2nd year anniversary, or my Discord anniversary of being on Discord with the Cantina Cast. I know, it was very touching. So I recorded a short audio, I don't know what you call it, little story of just kind of recounting it and kind of what Discord means to me. God, that sounds super sappy, but it's really fun. A lot of us we do a lot on Discord because it's so much fun with the interaction and everything else. So I went ahead and recorded a short audio clip over there for Patreon members. You can get it for as cheap as $1, guys. It's nothing crazy or anything like that. It's like 13 minutes. But if you feel like checking it out, and if you're on our Discord server, I hope you take a moment to go and check it out and let us know what you think. It actually spurred a couple of other ideas of what I think I might be doing, maybe on a more weekly basis for Patreons as well. So if you're interested, check us out over at patreon.com/thecantinacast, or you can find all of our links over to earglemedia.com. Of course, tons of great shows.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Thanks for doing that show. I'm halfway through it. I'll finish it tomorrow. So
God, you have zero time apparently.
No,
you can't get through a 12-minute, 50-second episode.
Yep, I'm sorry, but I will get through it. It's been pretty good, and it was really cool to kind of reminisce along with you there as I was listening to it. So
folks, if I would have put that on cassette tape, you would have listened to it about 12 times already.
We'd be listening to it right now if you had it on cassette. All right, well, I'm going to finish looking at the drink menu here. We'll be back next week for another show. They got a drink called the Yub Nub for $15. It's got real bits of Ewok in it, too. So, all right, anything before we go?
No, the Yub Nub should be like half price.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, you see what I did there? Yeah, great.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Shut this down.
Yeah, see you next week.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.